Senator Brant McCready says Monday was a good day for the legislature in coming together to pass Bill 350.
Bill 350 authorizes the governor to pay prior year obligations and overtime for the Guam Police Department. You know, yesterday we put our differences aside and we came out with a measurable outcome.
Bill 350 originally would have appropriated $600,000 from the Supplemental Appropriation Revenue, or SAR fund, to GPD for prior year's overtime owed to their officers. However, what was eventually passed was a $668,000 appropriation to cover not just OT, but also interest owed for prior years.
It's a year late, but they get it.
Along with the increased appropriation, the new bill no longer would tap into the SAR fund, but instead authorizes the governor to pay for the overtime through the general fund.
We changed it. I made an amendment on the floor to switch the funding source from the SAR fund to the general fund 2014 revenues. And that was what the governor had asked for in his press release yesterday morning. He was in full support of the measure. He wanted the authorization, and he feels that he can pay it through this funding source.
The bill was officially transmitted to the governor's office today, and Director of Communications Troy Torres thanked McCready and his colleagues for fighting for our men and women in blue.
We're looking into it, but if it's based on a funding source that is viable, then we will be very happy to take the authorization so that we can pay the overtime due to those hardworking police officers.
And while the governor stated his support of McCready's efforts yesterday, is it likely he'll sign Bill 350 into law?
We have to look at the exact language. We're still looking at what this bill did, but the SAR fund was not viable. It was not a viable funding source, and so we're glad that they made that change. Now, what they made the change to is something that we're looking at right now, and we're pretty hopeful that everything's on the up and up.
Torres says the governor's fiscal team has done its job in maintaining a good cash flow, but in order to make those payments, need the legislature's authorization. But what about the estimated $2 million in overtime that GPD is expected to incur by the end of this fiscal year?
In order for us to pay what's beyond and above what's budgeted by the legislature needs to adjust the budget and give us the authority to pay even more.
McCready, meanwhile, says he believes a special appropriation can be made to address the rest of GPD OT in the upcoming budget session, adding the data provided by GPD will allow lawmakers to make an informed decision. Chief of Police Fred Bordalio, meanwhile, says the high amount of overtime for over 200 officers comes as a result of several officers who were deployed last year, along with officers having to be summoned to court and participating in several trainings. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Ken Quintaniza.